Thrombocytopenia is defined as blood platelet count below 150,000, and it is the second leading cause of blood disorders in pregnancy after anemia. It complicates 7 to 10% of all pregnancies. I will start my presentation by cases. I will present 3 cases with thrombocytopenia in pregnancy and the differential diagnosis of all cases. My first case is a 22-year-old woman is found to have a platelet count of 82,000 on routine screening at 16 weeks gestation of her second pregnancy. Her first child was delivered at term without complication. She was told her platelet count at that time 62,000. She has no knowledge of blood count done at any other time. Her mother had the last of her 8 pregnancies, all uncomplicated, 2 years earlier, and was found to have a low platelet count. The patient denied any history of bleeding or bruising. Her history and examination are otherwise unremarkable during her pregnancy. In the case, the platelet count was assessed monthly. At her routine prenatal visits, her platelet count remained between 50 and 60,000 during her whole pregnancy. The frequency of hematological monitoring was increased to weekly at 34 weeks gestation. We know in thrombocytopenia, when the patient, along her pregnancy, I can monitor the patient monthly, but at the end of 8 months or beginning of 9 months, we should routinely, if she has thrombocytopenia, to do CBC weekly. The fetus continued to develop normally, and at 36 weeks, the platelet fell to 43,000. The patient stated she preferred epidural anesthesia, and 10 milligrams of steroids daily was begun without a response. The patient refused further therapy to increase the platelet count and was delivered without epidural of a normal boy with a cord blood of normal platelets. And it is very important, it's one of the differentiating factor between immunothrombocytopenia and gestational thrombocytopenia. The mother's platelet count at delivery was 52,000. 2 months later, her platelet count rises to 127,000. I would like to mention the prevalence of causes of thrombocytopenia along the trimester. In the first trimester, the commonest cause of thrombocytopenia in pregnancy is the immunothrombocytopenia. In the second trimester, if the platelet count is more than 100,000, I will think for, in the majority of the cases, of gestational thrombocytopenia, and the other 50% will be between ITP or hereditary thrombocytopenia or microangiopathy and preeclampsia. And if platelets is less than 100,000, I will think for ITP. In the third trimester, the commonest cause of thrombocytopenia more than 100 will be gestational, and if platelet less than 50, I will think for preeclampsia and HELLP. This table will show the causes of inherited thrombocytopenia, which could be discovered during pregnancy, because some of the inherited thrombocytopenia could be discovered in pregnancy accidentally. Not all inherited thrombocytopenia is associated with moderate or severe form of thrombocytopenia. It can be associated with mild form of thrombocytopenia. I can diagnose inherited thrombocytopenia in the majority of the cases from peripheral blood film by the morphology of platelets, whether small or giant platelets. How we can evaluate the new onset of thrombocytopenia? First, I should differentiate between the immune thrombocytopenia and the congenital thrombocytopenia if I'm going to ask certain question. When was the onset of bleeding, bruising, or petechiae? If it is of a recent onset, I can think for immune thrombocytopenia. If it is of a long term since birth, I can think for congenital. Have there been changes regarding new medication during pregnancy? If the patient has received, for example, low molecular weight heparin and then she developed thrombocytopenia, I will never diagnose an inherited form. I can diagnose either immune thrombocytopenia or HIT. Has the patient has excessive bleeding after minor trauma? Yes, so I can think for congenital. Are there any positive family history? So congenital will be my first differential diagnosis. And what about the platelets in previous pregnancy in ITP? I can diagnose, for example, if the patient has long-term, have been previous normal platelet value, Yes, so I can think for ITP, or if she has since a long time thrombocytopenia, so the congenital will be my first differential diagnosis. And the very important differentiating factor is the response to treatment. If I will give steroids or IVIG or splenectomy, because we can do when the patient sometimes has a severe form of thrombocytopenia, which is not corrected by steroids, IVIG, or even the new era of thrombopoietin receptor agonist, we can do in the second trimester splenectomy if the platelet will rise, so it is immune thrombocytopenia. If it is variable or still low, I can think for congenital thrombocytopenia. And the response to platelet transfusion, in congenital thrombocytopenia, patients can respond, but immediately there will be destruction of platelets in immune thrombocytopenia. So the transfusion of platelet in immune thrombocytopenia, it is not one of the options of treatment. This picture will show number A, the normal platelets morphology is in blue. The blue points are platelets in the film. In B, these are the macrothrombocytes, which could be present with some autosomal dominant or recessive form of inherited thrombocytopenia. C, the figure C, is a microthrombocyte, and number D, it is one of the very important type of inherited thrombocytopenia, which is called May-Hagelin, in which is a neutrophil contain inclusion bodies which are gray by morphology from the peripheral blood. What are the normal investigations which should be done in a patient with thrombocytopenia? First, I should ask for complete blood picture, and it's very important to repeat the blood picture because sometimes the collection of the specimen is on editor and it can enhance agglutination of the platelet. So better to do it at that time on a citrate buffer. So sometimes I receive a patient with thrombocytopenia, and when I repeat it again, I will find that the patient has a normal platelet. It is very important to check on the peripheral blood film. Liver function test, thyroid function test, direct antiglobulin to detect if it is associated with also immune hemolytic anemia, antiphospholipid antibody, anti-nuclear antibody, Helicobacter pylori, virology, especially hepatitis C in Egypt, and I should search for von Willebrand disease type 2B, in which there is excessive binding or excessive affinity of the von Willebrand to platelet, leading to consumption of the platelet and rapid clearance. This figure will show the importance of doing, very important is to do a blood film. The first figure is the schizocytes which are present in the blood film to diagnose microangiopathy with pregnancy, which is present along all the trimester. And in this figure, we'll show the hypersegmented neutrophil because thrombocytopenia can be associated with certain nutritional anemia like megaloblastic anemia associated with due to folate deficiency or vitamin B12 deficiency. This type of anemia is associated with thrombocytopenia. And the third, sometimes we discover acute leukemia and blast in the peripheral blood. And my last figure is the myelodysplastic syndrome, which can be discovered also during pregnancy and is an important cause of thrombocytopenia. This lady, in the first case, she has a gestational type of thrombocytopenia. Gestational type, it is the most common etiology for thrombocytopenia in pregnancy, responsible for about 70 to 75 of all cases. Despite its prevalence, the cause of gestational is unknown. Many mechanisms have been implicated in the gestational type of thrombocytopenia, including dilutional from plasma expansion or insufficient response of the megakaryoblast to thrombopoietin, or enhanced platelet consumption, or increase in the level of von Willebrand, which will consume platelet and will induce its clearance, or there is a change in the adamants. In pregnancy, there is decrease in the level. Normally, physiologically, in pregnancy, there is decrease in the adamants with increase in the level of von Willebrand and consumption of platelets. From the perspective view of hematology, practical point should be kept in consideration when I am going to diagnose a gestational thrombocytopenia. A platelet count usually will start by 115,000 with 2 standard deviation below the mean at term. For example, at term, I can find the platelet can drop in gestational thrombocytopenia to 60 or even below 50. Gestational doesn't become apparent before the mid-second trimester. Only 1 to 5% of the women develop platelet count below 1,000, and few have platelet less than 75, but counts below 50 have been attributed to gestational thrombocytopenia on rare occasion, and other etiologies should be excluded at that time. Gestational thrombocytopenia doesn't reflect or affect the health of the mother or the baby, so the baby will be born with a normal platelet count, unlike the form of ITP. And it doesn't respond to IVIG or corticosteroids, which has been tried when thrombocytopenia is so severe. And this lady didn't respond to steroids, as I mentioned. If thrombocytopenia doesn't resolve within 1 to 2 months of delivery, I will think for either hereditary thrombocytopenia or immune thrombocytopenia. My second case is a 36-year-old woman, gravida 2 para 2, with a history of ITP since the age of 28. So this lady is diagnosed as ITP even before her pregnancy. She asked her doctor if she can get pregnancy. He accepted, and her platelet count is typically between 40 to 60,000, but can fall lower after upper respiratory tract infection or at any times of physical stress. She has been treated with and responded to steroids and IVIG in the past. Her last pregnancy was complicated with a platelet count of 20,000 in her third trimester, requiring steroids and IVIG. The platelet count was 90 at term, and she delivered a healthy neonate with a platelet count of 125,000. So this lady received IVIG and steroids at term. Immune thrombocytopenia accounts for only 3% of all cases of thrombocytopenia during pregnancy. It is the most common cause of platelets below 50,000 detected in the first and second trimester. Platelet counts may fall during gestation, and at least 15 to 35 of mothers will require treatment even prior to management of labor. Sometimes, مثلا, I will, if the patient has along her whole pregnancy 30,000, I can keep the mother under observation if she has no bruises or bleeding gum or epistaxis or any source of bleeding. If she has less than 30, I should treat with steroids or other immunosuppressive agent during pregnancy. So I should not wait till labor. ITP should be suspected when an otherwise healthy mother who is taking no medication and has no relevant family or gestational history of concern present with a platelet count below 70 to 80,000 in the first or second trimester, with a peripheral blood showing thrombocytopenia without evidence of small or giant platelet, and with normal hemoglobin. This table will differentiate the gestational from ITP. A very important differentiating point is the onset at pregnancy. It can occur at any time, but usually gestational occur in the second and third trimester. Platelet count usually in the gestational is above 50, and in ITP it can drop even below 50,000. Thrombocytopenia outside pregnancy is possible in the ITP. Neonatal thrombocytopenia is possible with ITP, and it is a major cause of cerebral hemorrhage in the newborn. And postpartum resolution occur in gestational thrombocytopenia, but not in ITP. A specific platelet count should be maintained in pregnancy has not been established. There is no guidelines which mentions that I should maintain a platelet count of a certain level during pregnancy. Thus, if platelet remains greater than 15 to 20,000 and there is no associated bleeding, women with ITP can be observed without any specific intervention until closer to labor and delivery. But in majority of hematologists prefer to treat at this point. Although there are no randomized control data that defines the necessity of platelet threshold to assure hemostasis for epidural anesthesia, it is better. Most institutions prefer during epidural anesthesia or the time of delivery to keep platelet count above 75,000. The mainstay of therapy for ITP in pregnancy is steroids or IVIG, but I should keep in consideration that if I am going to give corticosteroids early in first or second trimester, it can be associated with orofacial cleft palate, and late, if I'm going to give a big dose of steroids, it can carry hypertension. If I'm going to give steroids, very important point to know that platelet rise will not occur before 3 to 7 days. If I need a very rapid response, I will give IVIG. And the usual window to initiate steroids is gestational week 36 to give a sufficient time to escalate the dose. Although IVIG yield early platelet response, I should understand that the benefit will decline within 2 weeks. So a hematologist should coordinate with obstetrician regarding the timing of delivery. Alternative treatment, if the patient can't afford IVIG because it is an expensive drug, or the patient has, for example, severe hypertension or uncontrolled diabetes. So other treatment which could be given, immunosuppressive agent like azathioprine or cyclosporin A could be given in pregnancy without evidence of harm to the baby. Other option is rituximab. It is a monoclonal antibody, anti-CD20, but it can be associated with severe immunosuppression of the neonate up to 6 months post-labor. Platelet transfusion has no role in immune thrombocytopenia. The newest drug is the thrombopoietin receptor agonist. There are 2 drugs, romiprostin and L-thrombopeg. Romiprostin is given subcutaneous weekly, and L-thrombopeg, it is given orally. The problem is that these are expensive drugs. They are used in immune thrombocytopenia. They are very effective drugs. Although promising response were reported in pregnancy and no fetal anomalies have been identified, the problem with these drugs, the expenses, as I mentioned, and the abrupt, when I will stop the drug, immediately platelet count will fall. But they are very effective to be given during pregnancy. I tried with many cases and these drugs were very effective. This table will show that other drugs which could be given, like cyclophosphamide or mycophenolate mofetil, the vinca alkaloid. It is one of the chemotherapeutic agents which is used in the treatment of acute lymphoblastic leukemia, but it is very effective in increasing platelet count, but it carries the risk of fetal anomaly. Uncomplicated vaginal delivery can occur in women even with a platelet count 19,000, but the problem, there is no guarantee if I'm going to do a vaginal delivery that I will not convert to cesarean section. So it is better if I'm going to do a cesarean section to give platelet count above 50,000. This by general anesthesia, but if by epidural anesthesia, it is very important to keep platelet count above 75,000. My last case is a 38-year-old Gravida 2, Para 2 woman at 39 weeks gestation presented to the obstetric unit after a tonic-clonic seizures witnessed by her husband. Abnormal laboratory findings included a normal hemoglobin, leukocytosis. I would like to mention also that pregnancy is one of the causes of leukocytosis, with thrombocytopenia 87,000, with hypoalbuminemia and proteinuria. Transaminases and LDH were not determined because of a hemolyzed blood sample. Coagulation results and creatinine were normal. The blood film confirmed the presence of thrombocytopenia with some giant platelet and platelet fragmentation. This lady is diagnosed as microangiopathy. Microangiopathies are a group of disorders in which both thrombocytopenia and hemolytic anemia can occur. Microangiopathies related to pregnancy are the preeclampsia, acute fatty liver disease of pregnancy, or the syndrome of HELP, which is a severe form of preeclampsia, hemolysis and elevated liver enzymes and low platelets. There may be diseases that could be associated with pregnancy but are not related to pregnancy, like the aggravation of thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura or the atypical hemolytic uremic syndrome. Atypical hemolytic uremic syndrome is a type of microangiopathy in which there is abnormal activation of the complement with increased platelet aggregation and damage to the endothelium, leading to thrombocytopenia and thrombosis at the same time. The preeclampsia and HELP is defined as a new onset of hypertension associated with proteinuria at or after gestational week 20. Preeclampsia is defined as a severe hypertension accompanied by one of the following features: either thrombocytopenia, impaired liver function, new onset renal insufficiency, pulmonary edema, cerebral or visual disturbance, and persistent systolic hypertension more than 160, and with a diastolic blood pressure more than 110. This figure will show the mechanism or the pathogenesis of preeclampsia, in which there is stenosis, or the spasm of the spiral artery, and failure of the trophoblast to take the place of material endothelium. At the end, this will lead to ischemia to the fetus and mother. HELP is a severe form of preeclampsia affecting approximate 10% of cases of preeclampsia and representing a major source of maternal and perinatal mortality and morbidity. The biochemical changes of DIC will be present in approximate 10% of HELP, but we didn't find it in preeclampsia. An imbalance, and the mechanism is an imbalance between the angiogenic versus anti-angiogenic factor and the excessive production of thromboxane A2, and which will stimulate the platelet aggregation, and it is a very important vasoconstrictor factor. Ending by placental ischemia and systemic maternal intravascular ischemia. This observation led to a hypothesis that the use of antiplatelet agent may prevent or delay the development of preeclampsia. In a recently published Cochrane review examined a heterogeneous complication of 60 trial, finds that when low-dose aspirin was used, reporting an 18% reduction in the risk of proteinuria preeclampsia, most women were recruited after 12 weeks. عشان كده it is better, for example, if the mother has been exposed previously to preeclampsia, in the next pregnancy, better to give from the start antiplatelet. Sure, she will, if there is no contraindication, she can benefit from this low-dose aspirin. Fetal delivery is a mainstay of treatment in preeclampsia and HELP. Antihypertensive and magnesium also should be given. Platelet transfusion should be considered in severe form of thrombocytopenia, and in HELP, it is very important to manage DIC by giving, if it is more towards thrombosis, so we give low molecular weight heparin. If it is more DIC is towards hemorrhage, so it is better to give fresh frozen plasma. Most women with preeclampsia or HELP will clinically improve post-delivery, with a laboratory test to be resolved within 48 hours. An alternative diagnosis for microangiopathies, such as TTP and atypical hemolytic uremic, should be considered if the fetal delivery will not result in clinical improvement. If I will find that the patient will not improve post-delivery and there will be persistence of severe thrombocytopenia and coagulopathy, so I think that this microangiopathy was due to either TTP or a hemolytic uremic syndrome. This table will differentiate the different microangiopathic thrombocytopenia in pregnancy. The key diagnostic feature for preeclampsia and HELP is the hypertension and proteinuria. In acute fatty liver of pregnancy is the rising of transaminases with appearance of jaundice. In thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura, I will ask for the level of ADAMET 13, which will be less than 10, and there will be autoantibody to ADAMETs. And if it is a congenital type of thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura, the autoantibodies will be negative. A typical hemolytic uremic syndrome, the ADAMET 13 will be normal. In different types of microangiopathy, the thrombocytopenia in preeclampsia and HELP will be usually above 50,000. In TTP, it will be less than 20,000. In hemolytic uremic, it will be less than 100,000. And it is a fully affected or mild form of thrombocytopenia in acute fatty liver of pregnancy. Acute fatty liver of pregnancy, it is difficult to distinguish sometimes from HELP, but more significant, there is hepatic injury, which is classic. There is transaminitis, hypoglycemia, DIC, and encephalopathy, and coagulopathy is often severe, and it is usually from the start associated with antithrombin deficiency. There are many risk factors for acute fatty liver of pregnancy, including male fetus and fetal fatty acid oxidation disorder, which will lead to accumulation of long-chain 3-hydroxyacyl-CoA dehydrogenase metabolites, which will induce direct liver injury of the mother. Other factors are obesity, diabetes, and intrahepatic cholestasis. Prompt fetal delivery is indicated regardless of the gestational weeks. Often significant blood transfusion support will be required to stabilize the mother and manage the associated coagulopathy. Fulminant maternal liver failure, despite fetal delivery, remains possible, and there is a risk of recurrence in approximately 25% of mothers. The last part of my presentation will be thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura. There is increased production. Normally, physiologically, in pregnancy, there is increased von Willebrand factor in pregnancy. Thus, deficiency of ADAMTs responsible for cleavage or of ultra-large von Willebrand multimer can trigger an acute episode of TTP in pregnancy, more readily than outside of this physiological stressor. In fact, 10 to 25 of all cases of TTP diagnosed will be in pregnant or postpartum women. Undetectable ADAMTs is a unique diagnostic criteria to diagnose thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura, and in acquired TTP, there is also associated autoantibody. However, in congenital type, it has been reported in up to 50% of all cases of TTP in pregnancy. In congenital TTP, I should suspect when I have low ADAMTs with no inhibitors, and definitive diagnosis require gene sequencing. Gestational TTP most commonly present in the second half of pregnancy, and it is associated with severe thrombocytopenia, abundant schizocytes in the peripheral blood, and elevation of the LDH with neurological manifestations, or even the female can present with psychiatric manifestations. I saw 2 patients in my life who came pregnant with psychiatric manifestations only, and when I asked of complete blood picture, I found many schizocytes in the peripheral blood, and I diagnosed that the patient has TTP associated with pregnancy, and when she received plasma exchange, her condition much improved. The best line of treatment of gestational TTP is plasma exchange, and once I suspect, immediately she should start plasma exchange. To differentiate between congenital and acquired form of TTP, from the first session of plasma exchange, congenital TTP will improve because the plasma which will be transfused to the mother, it contains a lot of ADAMTs, which will correct or will clear the ultra-large form of von Willebrand factor. But in acquired form of TTP, I need more than 2 to 3 sessions to see the improvement on the mother. In congenital TTP, I can continue the treatment with only fresh frozen plasma because the session of plasma exchange is very expensive. Recurrent TTP in future pregnancy is estimated at approximately 50% for women with congenital TTP or acquired. Women with a history of gestational TTP should have, if I will find that in her last pregnancy, she was diagnosed as TTP, so in this pregnancy, there should be monthly platelet monitoring with early initiation of fresh frozen plasma, simple infusion for congenital type, and plasma exchange for women with a history of acquired TTP when she will come complaining from, and I will find in her CBC, beginning of thrombocytopenia, and when I will ask for ADAMTs, I will find that it is less than 10% activity. Atypical hemolytic uremic syndrome is diagnosed usually in the postpartum period. The patient will present in association with thrombocytopenia marked impaired in the renal function, and ADAMTs 13 may be lower than normal, but will remain usually more than 10. Similar to gestational TTP, there is no evidence to support fetal delivery as an effective treatment modality for atypical hemolytic uremic syndrome. Early intervention with anti-CD5 antibody, which is called eculizumab. Eculizumab will block the activity of the complement, that it will stop the activation of the platelet and endothelial damage. But the eculizumab is an FDA-approved drug, but it is not present in Egypt. In these patients, we give in Egypt, when we diagnose atypical hemolytic uremic syndrome of complement type, we will give corticosteroids, and sometimes plasma exchange can help. It is very important if we are going to give these drugs, the eculizumab, to the pregnant female, we should give meningococcal vaccination because to get rid of meningococcus meningitis is very important of the activity of the complement. My last slide is a general guidelines to keep platelet in non-hemorrhagic cases of thrombocytopenia in pregnancy. If I'm going to do intervention antenatal, non-invasive procedure planned, I should keep platelet more than 20,000, vaginal delivery more than 40, operative or instrumental delivery more than 50, and with epidural anesthesia more than 80,000. Regarding the question of Professor Ashraf regarding the assisted way of pregnancy, like intracytoplasmic sperm injection or in vitro fertilization, it's very important to keep the mother better above 80,000 platelet count. Thank you.